My story starts out a little rough. 7 years ago, my dad died. I loved my dad. He was smart and knowledgeable, contrarian. I'm a little contrarian too. I get that from him, much to my mother's dismay. And when I was 8, I came home from school with a B- in behavior and compliance. I know, they graded us on compliance, it's insane. But a B-? I mean, I was upset. My dad pulled me aside. He said, "Sonja, I think it's better to only get a B- in compliance." I love that he taught me it's a good thing to not always do what the grown-ups want you to do. He was cremated right after he died, but the funeral wasn't held for another 4 months. My mother said, "He's from England. We need 4 months to make sure his friends and family can be here." But really, we needed 4 months because my mother puts on a funeral like most people put on a wedding. The event was being held at a big family beach house right on the St. Lawrence River in Quebec. It's a great house. It used to belong to my grandparents. Step out the back door, walk across the lawn, and you're right on the beach. That's wonderful. But my mother was planning a 2-day marathon. Guests would arrive for lunch on Saturday, stay through the afternoon, then stay for cocktails and a formal dinner. The next day after lunch, everybody would head off to the funeral home for a formal ceremony, and then go to the cemetery for the burial of the ashes, and then back to the house for cocktails and another formal dinner. There were menus and sequences of events and deliveries to accept and pickups to arrange, and everything had to be just so. I got there a couple of days early to help my mother set up, and I couldn't do anything right. I mean, she was upset with the way I was wiping the tables. I know she was grieving. I know all she wanted to do was put on this amazing funeral for the man that she adored. But this was nuts. There was nothing of my father in this funeral. I mean, formal and stuffy are the reasons my dad left England in the first place. So when the guests started arriving, I just had to get out of the house, and I walked out to the beach with my husband, Sean. We just looked out over the water. The St. Lawrence is this massive tidal river that runs right through the French part of Canada. Up where we were, it's so wide you can't even see the other side. It looks like the sea. And I turned to my husband and I said, "Let's build him a ship." Sean, my husband, knew right away what I meant. I wanted a boat that we're going to burn right here on the beach. There was no way my mother was going to go for this. There was no time in her impeccably planned schedule. Plus, it lacked formality. I mean, we're French Canadians, not Vikings. And it involved fire. I mean, my mother hates fire. My mother is terrified of fire. When I was a kid, she had the fireplace in our house walled up so that nobody would ever make a fire and accidentally burn the house down. So a handmade ship on fire on the beach was going to be out of the question on every single level. And we were totally going to do this, so she absolutely could not find out. Fortunately, she was busy running a 3-ring circus of a funeral, and there was this big garage just sitting there doing nothing. Sean loved the idea. Before I'd even given it a second thought, he was already in there sketching, gathering materials. His absence, however, did not go unnoticed by my mother. "Where's Sean?" He's in the garage." It's a surprise. A couple of years before, Sean had cleaned up the utility closet in the house, and my mother had bragged about it for weeks. I was fairly sure she thought he was in the garage cleaning up. There were so many ways she was going to be disappointed. A couple of times over the weekend, my brother and my cousin and I snuck into the garage to help Sean build the ship. And sure enough, by Sunday lunch, the ship was done. We locked up the garage, and with everybody else, we headed off to the funeral home. And it wasn't that bad. Yes, it was all velvet curtains and leather wing chairs, but people said really nice things about my dad. And afterwards, we buried his ashes under a big blue open sky. But the ceremonies took forever, and by the time we got back to the house, the sun was already starting to set. We had to do this thing now, otherwise it'd be too dark to even see the ship. So I went in and I asked everybody to follow me outside, and my mother is like, no way! We're having cocktails, dinner's about to be served. And, here I was trying to derail her perfect funeral just as it was entering the last final movement. But I had to do this. I had no choice. I said, but it's Sean's surprise. I could tell she wasn't happy, but I could also tell that somewhere deep inside her, she was really excited about seeing a clean garage. So I waited. And she broke. She said, all right, let's go. And she thinks we're just going to step outside, poke our heads in the garage, share a few exclamations about how we've never seen it this clean, and then come back in and have dinner. But as soon as people step outside, I walk them out straight to the beach. And then my husband, my brother, and my cousin come out carrying this ship. The tide's just gone out. It's dusk. But the pink sky still gives off just enough light for people to see this handmade ship being set onto the wet sand. It's 8 feet long. It's 3 feet wide. There's this 6-foot-tall dragon head that juts out the front, and it's balanced out with this 5-foot tail in the back. There's this huge mast, and Sean's even made these shields to hang off the edge of the hull. It looks amazing, and my dad would have loved it. And all the guests on the beach are completely silent. They're curious, but they're confused. So I explain. My dad had loved the sea. When we were kids, he would take me and my brother to the ocean. He'd dive in and swim out so far that we would lose sight of him. But he always came back. So tonight we're burning a ship for him to light the way, because this time he's not coming back. I lean in to light the newspaper that we've crumpled up inside the hull, and I see the fireworks that my cousin has packed in there. He'd asked me beforehand, and I thought he was nuts, but at that moment I thought, why not? And it all goes perfectly. Bursts of light launch into the sky, the flames take off, and now it's like completely dark, and all you can see against the black night are these 10-foot-tall flames and the shape of the ship and the dragon head. And everybody is just bathed in the warmth and light of the fire, smiling, remembering my dad. I see my mother walk towards me and Sean. When she reaches us, she puts her arms around us and she says, "What a wonderful surprise. There's no way I would have let you do this." But she looks relaxed. She's finally stopped trying to run this funeral, and she's just in it now with all of us. All this time, we thought we were building a ship to honor my dad, and we were. But on fire, it became this beacon that brought my mother back to us. I guess my dad was right all those years ago. It is good to not always do what the grown-ups want you to do. Thank you.